All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the #1 show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know what goes down when you hit that play button, whatever the challenge is, whatever the goal is, whatever the obstacle is, whatever it is you're going through. We are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. Today, I have Mr. Alan Lazaros. Did I pronounce that right?
Lazarus.
Alan
No
Lazaros.
worries though.
Well, yeah, the thing about him, and one of the things I actually was reluctant to tell him this before we actually started recording because I wanted to make sure it got recorded is he really embodies this principle of turning your mess into your message, turning all the things that may have happened to you in your life that were uncontrolled, that were not your fault, and not making excuses, not setting up a situation where you have a victim mentality, but saying, okay, this is what it is, this is life, and I'm going to continue to move forward. Alan, when people may be looking at you on whether Instagram, they first initially look you up, they see the six pack, the next level university, the polished speaker, the finished product. However, growing up, you went through a lot of shit, an unfortunate situation with your father, then you had the stepfather, and then there was all sorts of family dynamics that were really difficult. I could only imagine were really difficult for you to really find your footing when it came time to be an adult and make these decisions. So, I think that's probably the best place to start, man, is go right into your origin story and how you were able to maneuver through a fairly, I'll say, challenging childhood.
Yeah, it was fairly challenging. No, so first and foremost, thank you. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. You're motivating people, you're inspiring people. I respect, admire, appreciate that so much. I started listening to podcasts 9 years ago, and they really helped me sort of reconstruct my life in a much more positive direction. And so even you just bringing that energy,
Yeah,
somebody out there today needs that. And so I'm grateful to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
1,000%.
As far as my story, I'm going to try to condense 35 years into less than 5 minutes, which is very, very difficult.
Right.
But essentially, the most important thing to understand here about my story is I did not understand this at the time. It's very, very clear. I started doing therapy in my 30s. I often joke, I say I'm hoping to hit puberty at 36.
Yeah,
I'm 35, but I look super young.
exactly.
uh, but anyways, so I didn't understand this. It's like rewatching a movie you saw as a kid,
Yes.
and then you watch it again as an adult and you go, oh, okay, now I understand. Now I understand. Now I understand. So I used to listen to podcasts and see these speakers who not only were very articulate, but also it felt like they had it all figured out. And
Hmm.
it's very important for everyone listening to understand that as a podcaster, speaker, coach, trainer over the last 9 years, you start to figure it out a lot more because you reflect on it a lot, and then therapy as well. So, okay. So when I was 2 years old, you mentioned challenging childhood. My father passed away when he was 28 years old.
Hmm.
My mom was 31 at the time. My sister was 6. I had a stepfather. So my birth father, my real last name is actually McCorkle.
Hmm.
So he's a part of a big Irish Catholic family. So it was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette.
Hmm.
And so he was one of 6, my birth father. Then my stepfather came into the picture. My stepfather, his name was Steve Lazarus. And so my last name, I took my stepfather's last name, I think around age 7. And when we were being the Lazaruses from age 3 to 14, my stepfather left at 14.
Right.
We were trying to be the Lazaruses, so we didn't really associate much with the McCorkles.
Right.
And so the first family, McCorkles, kind of off to the wayside. Stepfather leaves at 14. I playfully refer to my childhood from age 3 to 14. And this is really where you build the scaffolding of who you are, your identity, your trajectory, your belief, your self-worth, all this stuff. 3 to 14, I refer to as boats and BS.
Hmm.
My stepfather worked for a company called AGFA. They did hospital computers during the dot-com bubble.
Hmm.
And in the 90s, particularly in the US, but honestly, globally, the dot-com bubble was boom times. I mean, the 90s were just wild. It seemed like everybody had money.
Right.
And my mom and stepdad, I mean, it was boats and it was ski trips and we had snowmobiles and we built our own home on a lake. And my stepfather had a motorcycle. My mom drove a BMW. We had trucks and all this different stuff. So, and that was also
Where did you
who they
where did you
spent.
grow up?
Go ahead.
Where'd you grow up?
Massachusetts.
Okay. So, okay.
Massachusetts, yeah. And then they also hung out with people who were similar. So we hung out with a lot of friends of theirs that had a lot of money too. So it just seemed like economic boom times as well.
Yeah.
But ultimately, looking back, my stepfather leaves at 14. He takes his entire extended family with him.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen a single one of them since.
Hmm.
Aunts, uncles, grandma, grandpa,
Right.
gone. Right. I have talked to my stepdad a little bit on Facebook Messenger, but I haven't seen him in person since.
Yes.
That same year, 14, hardest year of my life, didn't know it at the time.
Right.
My mom gets in a fight with my aunt Sandy, her sister,
Mm-hmm.
and my aunt ostracizes us from that side of the family. So I still to this day have only seen one member of that side of the family.
Right.
So I kind of lost three families by the time I'm 14.
Exactly.
And so I now understand the four trauma responses are fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Mm-hmm.
People say your adversity is your advantage, and I do agree with that if you have self-belief. If you don't have self-belief, adversity is just adversity.
Mm-hmm.
If someone has low self-belief, a fixed mindset, adversity is just pain and adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately for me, I always had this ridiculously large future orientation. I always believed in myself a ton.
Mm-hmm.
So adversity became my advantage. So I fawned socially. So fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Mm-hmm.
14, stepdad leaves, lose three families. I look into the future and I go, okay, this wasn't conscious, but no dad, no trust fund, no one's going to save me.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be, it's up to me. And this was the year of personal responsibility. And so my two trauma responses socially, I became quite a coward. I didn't want anyone to know. I had low self worth. Everyone else has a dad and I don't.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with me? That kind of stuff. And so socially, I was sort of a coward. I never really was very courageous socially until my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
I never even could have said any of this.
Right. Yeah, I
That,
actually
that
remember you bringing that up, and as one of the things that myself as a podcaster as well is it takes courage to speak on family situations. However, if you want to reach the level of success, if you want to reach that client that really wants your help and really step into your purpose, you've got to move beyond that. There's certain things that, hey, again, and one of the things I resonate with you is this concept of your family being all over the place. Not knowing this.
yeah.
There's genuinely a lost feeling. However, in that lost feeling, you're able to find yourself because of everything that you just mentioned. At that point, here's the responsibility on my end to say, I'm going to figure this thing out and I'm not going to depend on anybody else, which ultimately leads you towards a bad habit as it is. But it does take courage. And I actually wrote about that in my book, is that if you do want to reach success, there is going to be some uncomfortable friction between you and family members who may not have been able to achieve those levels of success. And that's just part of the game, guys. That's part of the rule. So if these things are happening for you, and I'm re-emphasizing what he's saying, if these things are happening for you, don't run from it, engage it, live in it, kind of reside in it, and understand that feeling, you're gonna have to bring that shit every single day. It's not going to be a one-time thing. It's going to be something that you carry on with you every single day.
Well, there's a reason I always say this
Mm-hmm.
to clients, but also to listeners and that kind of thing. There's a reason you post things on TikTok you'll never post on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is your judgmental relatives and all that kind of stuff. And so we're also afraid socially. I think there's two worlds. There's your world,
Mm-hmm.
which is the real world that you live in. You're tethered to reality, hopefully. And then there's the social world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'll use a fascinating example. It's like in the social world, you have a Beyonce who is unbelievably famous,
Mm-hmm.
but in the real world, she's just a human being who has feelings and all that kind of stuff. And so I've had to realize through becoming a public figure how weird it is to have two different worlds kind of. And I'm really trying hard to have them be the same world, which
Yeah.
is actually really hard. So, but anyways,
You figure it
going
out,
back
you
to
let
the
us know, man. You let us know, because that's something that's actually definitely something that I think it's kind of really difficult to manage those two. Being the
it
public
is
figure and then understanding real world element to it. And it's not because we step out and say, hey, I want to be a public figure. No, we're speaking our truths. And if we don't tell our truths, we're gonna die anyway. If we don't say what's on our heart, we're not gonna be able to function. That's how a lot of this stuff works.
Well, I don't think you can be fulfilled in life. I think you can be successful in life. I don't think you can be fulfilled in life if you're not expressing your what's true to you and expressing your feelings and thoughts and what you really believe.
Yes,
What
1000%.
you really believe. And that's so hard socially. So I became this sort of social coward.
Yeah.
But however, behind the scenes, my trauma response. So fawn is appease, appease, appease.
Hmm.
Fight behind the scenes. So fight, work harder, aim higher, get smarter. Work harder, aim higher, get smarter. Work harder, aim higher, get smarter. I mean, that is my go-to. That's my go-to. When life gets hard, work harder, aim higher, get smarter.
Yeah.
Period. Got straight A's through all of high school.
Hmm.
Got what's called the President's Award. It's actually behind me, signed by George W. Bush.
There you go.
And I went from when my stepdad left, he took 90% of the income with him. He got the yacht and the dog, or yacht and the apartment building. We got the house and the dog.
Hmm.
And we went from boats and ski trips to I get free lunch at school now because our income is so low. I'm shopping at thrift stores. We're not going to starve by any means, but my mom trades in her BMW for a little Honda Civic. I mean, we went, you know, not a lot of income. Very, 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 very low.
Hmm.
And so I went from I can't wait to get into WPI and become a computer engineer
Yeah.
to it's one of the best engineering schools in the world, but it's $50,000 a year. And this is back then
Right.
to even if I do get in, I can't go.
Right.
So then I went hard and I straight A's through all of high school. I got all the scholarships and financial aid that I possibly could. I got in, I got my computer engineering degree, I got my master's in business, and then I was off to the races. And ultimately I had internships and all kinds of stuff. So I had iRobot, Sensata Technologies, global product manager, product engineer, all these different companies, Tyco Safety Products, Lens Americas.
Yeah.
And I just job hop, job hop, job hop, 65 to 85, 85 to 105, 105 to 125, 125 to almost $200,000 a year. And I'm in my early 20s. So that was, in hindsight, that's weird. It's kind of
Right.
weird.
Exactly.
I pay off $84,000 worth of college debt in a single year.
Hmm.
I'm driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought in $5,000 cash because to me, I was so used to being so broke in high school and college that I didn't need much.
Right.
My rent is $500. I live with my girlfriend at the time, Courtney,
Hmm.
on a lake, and we split the rent, and it's not expensive. And I don't have kids or mortgage or any of that stuff.
Hmm.
And so I paid off 84 grand worth of debt in that single year back in 2014. I invested $150,000 into Vanguard. I just was okay, I'll get wealthy. So
Right.
stepdad left, wealth left.
Hmm.
If I get wealthy, that's the answer.
Right.
So I invested it in mostly tech companies that I knew would win and knew, I say in quotes, because it's all probabilities, but ultimately,
Right.
there's certain good bets and bad bets.
Right.
I'm 26 years old. I get in my car accident. So at this point, I'm working for a company called Cognex. They sell industrial automation equipment into manufacturing facilities all across the world. And it's machine vision, sort of like the eyes of a robot.
Hmm.
And it's very technical products. And ultimately, my territory, I did inside sales engineering and then I got promoted to outside sales. I do a territory of Connecticut, Vermont, and Western Massachusetts, and I manage my own territory.
Hmm.
And so I'm in my early 20s. I'm doing very, very well. I'm a top 1% global earner, not in the US, but global.
Right.
And that's when I get in my car accident. So I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin. The only the only person who came back from my mother's side, his name is Jeff. He had a little cousin, a son, my little cousin named Dan. Dan and I are driving to TGI Fridays. We're not drinking, nothing crazy. It's Friday night. We're playing Call of Duty. We drive to TGI Fridays. I look down at the GPS and then I look up and I see the brightest lights I'd ever seen. And I thought, this is definitely the end. I was on the wrong side of the road. I was supposed to yield and I didn't. The snowbanks were covering the yield signs. Back in 2015, dark winter night, bad winter. Supposed to yield, didn't, end up on the wrong side of the road. Two things saved my life, and this is in hindsight.
Hmm.
One was not a Mack truck, it was a lift kitted pickup truck. Thank goodness. If it was a Mack truck, no question, I would not be here.
Mm.
Two, the 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought in cash, used to call this car the Tank. Thank you, Volkswagen. German engineered steel trap of a car. The entire front end was completely and utterly demolished, smashed in, but the frame stayed.
Hmm.
Airbags deployed. Cousin and I are not even that hurt. He hurt his knee on the airbag. No, he hurt his face on the airbag. I hurt my knee on, no, he hurt his knee on the airbag. I hurt my face in the airbag. But ultimately, I'm sitting in an armchair after that, just completely rattled because while we're physically okay, and he's still 17, he's my little cousin, he was tweeting about it that night.
Hmm.
But my dad died when he was 28 in a car accident. This was the second chance my dad never got. And this was no fender bender. I mean, this was bad.
Hmm.
Head on collisions are no fun. And not only that, but it was my fault too.
Hmm.
And I'm very, 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 very lucky to be alive. And I know that. And so for me, this was my existential quarter life crisis of Phoenix burned down, rise anew from the ashes. And so all the regrets hit me all at once. I drank too much and too often. I'm not super fulfilled. I'm getting wealthy and I make a lot of money and I party a lot and I have a lot of friends, high school friends and college friends and corporate friends. And we have a lot of fun, but my life isn't meaningful enough.
Right.
And what if that was it? Right. So that when you face mortality, maybe it's the death of a loved one, maybe it's a car accident, maybe it's an illness, you reevaluate your existence and you should.
Hmm.
And so for me, it's obvious in hindsight, last part, I was achievement oriented, type A, improvement, 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 but it was external.
Hmm.
Everything I did, snowboarding, basketball, video games, semi pro gamer, straight A's,
Right.
college, academics, but it was all achievement oriented. It was all goal oriented.
Yeah.
I was very results driven and I had pure intentions. But
Yeah.
in hindsight, it's so obvious I was not self improvement oriented.
Right.
It wasn't about personal growth. It
Mm.
wasn't about personal development. It wasn't about looking inside.
Right.
And so I flipped the script. I went from super successful and unfulfilled to actually super fulfilled, happy, healthy, fit, productive,
Right.
fitness model, fitness competitor,
Mm.
fitness coach, love my life to past broke. So now I'm fulfilled as hell, but unsuccessful.
Right.
And so now that was 2 or 3 years after my car accident, which was 26. Now I'm almost 36. So that was my car accident was almost 10 years ago.
Hmm.
And so now I'm finally in a place I think we all want to get to. And that's really ultimately the thing. And what I help people with now is you're not only successful, but you're also fulfilled.
Right.
And I actually think those individually, I think it's easy to be successful, as arrogant as that might sound.
Mm.
And I think it's easy to be fulfilled. I think it's very hard to be both.
Exactly.
It's very hard to be fulfilled and externally successful
Mm.
because a lot of times what the economy pays a lot for is not what's actually meaningful. And it's very hard to integrate the two. And so if you can authentically look in the mirror today and say, listen, I want my future to be an amplified version of what it already is,
Mhm.
you are successful and fulfilled. You are what everyone is looking for. So don't F it up. And I'm at
Yeah.
that place finally, which took, 33 years to get
Yeah,
to that
so
place where I can
actually,
authentically say
one of
that.
the things that actually got this show started was me going to a Tony Robbins conference named Unleash the Power Within. And
Nice.
things that I remember him saying specifically was success without fulfillment is failure. All right, success without fulfillment. If you're not fulfilled, you are actually failing every day. And I think your story, one of the things that actually really intrigued me about your story is that you brought up The Lion King. You brought up you brought up The Lion King and how that's your favorite movie. And as I'm hearing you retell it, I'm thinking of that scene where Simba is seeing his father's reflection in the water, and he's like, remember, don't forget who I am. And then he goes back and he looks at his past and he sees where he's all the things that were deserted and everything. And based on what you're saying, the question I actually have, and something that I think would be very beneficial for the listeners, is when you first make that step towards to say, look, I got all the money, I got everything. God spared my life in this accident, and you make that step to say, hey, I'm going to start working on the fulfillment piece. What is that like? What's that first step like to say, all right, look, I got a six pack. I know I see that those wings, the beer, the booze, the partying up, and it's so easy, Alan. This is the thing. It's so easy to access these things. It's so easy to go down that road. How do you sort of advise people to say, No, don't do it. I mean, I myself last year spent the whole year sober, and I knew there were times where I wanted to, but again, there was just certain things in my mind. So kind of speak on those early stages of finding fulfillment.
Good for you for spending the whole year sober, because as someone who used to drink too much and too often, and I've been sober now for I think more than 5 years, I used to count the days,
Yeah.
and then eventually got to a point where this is over, so I don't even need to count anymore, which is really cool. I think the last drink I had was 2019, the summer of 2019. But ultimately,
It's not worth
how
it. Speak on that for a moment. It's really not worth it, guys. And I'm gonna just be as you get older, and this I'm talking to someone that was raised in a Caribbean household. There was alcohol. We would socially drink. It is not worth what you will be giving up if you decide that alcohol is going to be the only way you can enjoy yourself. I'm telling you from experience in college, I used to get far, I mean, just beyond drunk, throwing up the whole, it is not worth it. I know it's fun. I might be talking to some people that like to have a drink, but I'm telling you, it's just not worth it. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I appreciate it. And same, I partied hard. I partied hard. And uh I agree with you 1000%. It's this is better. I've done both. This is better. It's
Mhm.
significant. Now it's harder in the short term, but I
And
think
that's
long term
saying when we're
it's
talking to
more
that
meaningful.
version of
Yeah.
yourself, right?
And you know what the problem is too? It is a blast. That's the problem. If
Yeah,
it wasn't fun, it wouldn't be a problem. But
exactly.
it's short-term fun at the expense of your bigger, better, brighter future. So when you say the how, and I think that's really the thing is I'm becoming so I'm an engineer thinker. There's four modalities of thinking. One of them is math, numbers, logic, rationality. And I
Yeah.
think it's the rarest one. And I can't I don't want to say I can't. I don't think without numbers. So to me, and this is what I do with my clients, I have this little triad of I guess goal achievement is what you'd call it. Kevin
Hmm.
thinks my business partner thinks I name shit terribly. But anyway, so in the center, so picture a triangle, and in
Yeah.
the center you have your goal, whatever it is. So it
Yeah.
can be to quit drinking, better body, better business, whatever. Make
Hmm.
it specific. There's three things that need to be in alignment for you to achieve that. And these are the minimums. Okay. Number one, you need metrics. You
Yeah.
have to measure something.
That's
And you
all.
have to know what to measure. That's actually a whole art and a science in and of itself is what do you measure? Okay. So 10 pounds in 10 weeks, you measure your calories, you measure your workouts, you measure
Hmm.
uh, your weight each day, obviously. Okay. Habits is next. Habits are what are you doing on a daily basis, weekly basis, biweekly, monthly, quarterly, annual. And it's not a habit unless it's a frequency. It's not a habit unless it's something that has a time stamp.
Right.
So usually I consider habits daily. And then the third one, and this is the one that people need to work on, and this is where the real work is done, the quote unquote inner work, is the identity.
Hmm.
Your identity is who you are when you're not thinking about who you are. It's the story you're telling yourself about yourself unconsciously. It's the subconscious and unconscious. So are you shy? Are you extroverted? Are you introverted? Are you a great speaker? Are you good at math? Are you science? What your identity is, are you a nerd? Are you a jock? So we have these labels. Are you an alcoholic or are you a bodybuilder? Are you both?
Hmm.
The labels determine what you do. What you do is a vote for the person you want to become, and the person you want to become is your identity. So we all have these self-fulfilling loops happening at all times. And so you can have the right metrics and habits toward a specific goal, but if you don't have the identity, that's where the self sabotage happens.
Right.
So if you don't identify as a public figure, you're not going to be a successful podcaster. You could be, but
Hmm.
it's less likely that you will be
Right.
because you aren't embodying that identity in advance. Okay, so when you say how do you reorient towards a fulfilling life? How do you reorient towards meaning? I think it comes down to paradigm. So a paradigm is a fancy word for what you believe the purpose of life is, what you believe is meaningful, what you believe is the point. What's the point? That's one of the reasons why my car accident was so transformative is I got to that point of what is the point?
Right.
What was the point of all that? And I realized in hindsight that I had a paradigm that had pros and cons. Every paradigm has pros and cons. Everything, every person, place, thing, and idea has pros and cons. All right. So my paradigm before my car accident was achievement number one,
Hmm.
pleasure number two, friends number three.
Hmm.
So naturally, I had a ton of fun. I achieved a lot and I had a boatload of friends, way too many friends.
Wow.
Pre 26 car accident, I had high school friends and college friends and corporate friends. And I brought my high school friends to college and I brought my college friends to corporate. I literally had a referral program at Cognex where I brought on a bunch of people from my school.
Mm.
And there was big bonuses attached with that, which I appreciated. But ultimately, I was everything for everyone, nothing for myself. It was not sustainable. It was not, I had a blast,
Mm-hmm.
but deep down, I was deeply unfulfilled. So
Right.
I had to shift my paradigm. And so the car accident got me to shift my paradigm. And this is the paradigm that I'm in now. Number
Mm.
one is growth. Number two is mission. Number three is contribution. My whole world is now oriented differently.
Right.
It's growth, contribution, which is mission. Yes, for a profit because I have to sustain it and grow it. And by the way, if you don't focus on profit in a business, you're going to go out of business quick. But that's not the point.
Mm-hmm.
Profitability is necessary, but not the goal.
Right.
I didn't start a self improvement company to make money. That
Right.
would be the worst idea ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I always joke with Kev. I say, we're selling kale outside a candy store. No,
Right.
people don't want these mirrors for free. Never mind pay me to give you them, right?
1,000% right.
So, but the idea here is you can reorient your paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it usually takes mortality to do that.
Right.
And so if you can ask yourself right now and uncover your paradigm, a lot of people have what's called a pleasure centered paradigm. They're always looking for the next fun thing.
Right.
There's that quote of the point of life is not to end up in the grave, safe and all of that stuff. The point is to have as much fun as possible on the way to the grave. Okay, that's a terrible paradigm if you want to live a fulfilling, meaningful life. Now, I'm not saying not to have fun, and this is where it gets a little complex. Laughter is a byproduct of me saying something funny. What if what everyone thinks is happiness is actually a byproduct of something deeper
Mm-hmm.
or higher? So, for example, I tell Kev, I said, dude, you want to achieve all these things, my business partner, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't identify as an achiever. He said, yeah. I said, don't you think the probability of you achieving your goals and dreams would increase if you started to identify as an achiever and then do achiever things? And he said, yeah. I said, here's the thing. If you don't identify as an achiever, you're not going to do what achievers do, and then you're not going to get the results achievers get.
Mm-hmm.
And if I decide I want to maximize my potential, I want to contribute as much as possible, I want to dedicate my life to holistic self-improvement, health, wealth, life, and love, and I want to help hundreds of thousands of listeners, millions of listeners all over the world, and I want to start my own coaching practice and all that stuff. My lifestyle that people now come to me and say, wow, it must be so nice. Yeah, but this is all a byproduct of a mission that's bigger than that.
Exactly. Exactly.
And unfortunately, the problem is the higher your self-belief, the higher the goals will be. The
Right.
higher the goals are, the higher standards you have to set yourself.
Right.
And then the harder it is to actually have good relationships because most people don't have high standards.
Exactly.
And so I actually thought people would like me more as I became more virtuous. That has been the complete opposite.
Yeah.
The more virtuous I've become, the more proud of me I've become, the more fulfilled I've become, the more I keep promises to myself, and the higher my self belief and self worth and self discipline and self respect gets, the less and less and less that I've been liked, the
Mm.
less and less I've been relatable, the less and less I feel like I coexist easily with others.
Right.
I become more and more and more socially alone. We talked about the social world in my world. In my world, I'm deeply fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's ridiculously hard to stay consistent at my standards. In the social world, it's very difficult to navigate because I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not doing drugs. I don't watch pornography. I don't have any vices in my left. I always joke my last remaining vice is
Mm-hmm.
caffeine. Don't you dare take it. It's my last one.
Yeah.
But the point that I'm making is seriously, if you want to be fulfilled, you have to live a virtuous life of growth and contribution. If you want to have fun, I
Yeah.
mean, you're short term going to have a blast, and long term, you're going to be a miserable human being.
Yeah, and well, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things that you had mentioned is the previous you, the 26-year-old you, had a ton of friends. You had a quote unquote friends, folks that you could hang out with. I mean, it must have felt I'm thinking of the 26-year-old version of myself. It must have felt amazing waking up. You must have felt like, oh my gosh, I have it all figured out. Everything is good. However, and you've already mentioned him, your business partner, you guys have a company, a professional, it's a personal development company named Next Level University. When you've built that, you're really saying it's harder to keep friends that have lower standards, right? So when it comes to what you guys are doing now, when it comes to the work you're doing now and how you serve people, can you speak on, first of all, how you guys were able to come up with something and start it, but ultimately, too, who exactly is the right person, the right fit for you to engage with, and how do you know that this is somebody that's going to maintain a standard over a period of time? Because you're not sugarcoated. You're not saying, oh, this is going to be easy coming in, and then oh yeah, we're going to be some magic pill and everything's going to feel good. No, you're going to go through some really traumatic shit. You're going to have to actually open up and do some things that'll make you uncomfortable. But if you do it, you're making this decision. So, speak of that a little bit.
Yeah, we all know it's who you surround yourself that matters, and probably more than just about anything. I think number one would be self-belief. Like if I could give you the five things that matter, and I've coached now, I'm coming up on 10,000 hours. I have a 10,000 hour
Every
tracker.
outlier,
Coaching,
maybe Malcolm Gladwell, one of my
yeah,
favorite.
yeah, you know the deal. Nice. All right, so coaching, speaking, training, podcasting. I say this because that many different people from that many different industries, that many different backgrounds,
Mhm,
that many different countries, all different cultures. I mean, it's just there's certain things that become very, 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 very obvious
mhm,
patterns that you just pick up on. And people that are anywhere from 16 years old, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel, to 63 years old, I've been in business for decades and I'm a multimillionaire already,
right.
and everything in between. I
Mhm,
have 28 people on my roster currently that I coach right now. And
mhm,
so this is what I do. Helping people achieve success in business and in life is what I do, and fulfillment. I have this written on my board.
right.
Success is number one, fulfillment's number two, and your feelings are third.
Mm,
All right. Now I'm gonna be hopefully the pain in the ass that you thank one day. So for anyone watching or listening, you asked me who to associate with and who not to associate with.
right.
It's scary to share some of this stuff because some of the stuff that's the most powerful in terms of actual life change makes people the most upset.
Mm,
So people want to believe that everyone is of equal value. And unfortunately, spiritually, yes, that's true. Spiritually, yes. But in the real, tangible, physical world, that's like saying a shack and a mansion should be the same price. Why is a mansion more valuable than a shack? It's because you renovated it more. You had the best architect. The people put more work, more time, effort, and money into it. You had the best materials. You marble countertops. You renovated the kitchen. It, you can't. First of all, you're never going to renovate the kitchen of a home you don't believe is valuable. So that's where self worth comes in. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not renovating themselves. This Apple 14, this iPhone 14,
mhm,
back in 2007, I was a senior in high school and they came out with the very first iPhone. It was a revolutionary breakthrough. It was the first iPhone. Compared to this, that iPhone would be hot garbage. It
yes.
wouldn't even be close.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a computer engineer. So forgive me for this. I'm about to be Alan 3.6. I'm
Mhm,
35. I'm going to be 36 in November 17th. I'm going to be Alan version 3.6. Alan version 3.6 is significantly exponentially more valuable than Alan 3.0, than Alan 2.6,
that's the way it
than
should.
Alan
Way it should
2.2.
be. It should be
Yes,
like that.
exactly.
It should
So
be like
just like every iPhone has a better camera, better software, better operating system, better apps, you as a human being should also be a better version of yourself every month, every year, every quarter, that kind of thing. And so I'm 3.5 version of Alan, and 3.5 version of Alan is of a certain value.
that. Mhm,
And in your life, I can help you stay more motivated, more inspired, more educated. I'm more aware. And so when we say the iPhone is more capable, the iPhone 14 is far more capable
mhm.
than the iPhone 10. Everyone gets it. But when I say I, Alan, am far more capable than you, all of a sudden your ego is
Exactly.
triggered.
Uh, But
But it's
that
the
to
same
me,
exact
to
principle.
me, that should be a point where if your ego's triggered, this is where people are turned, quality people that can help you, they're going to be turned off by you. This is why your stance and your posture and where it is you actually want to go, how willing you are to learn from folks who they're not saying they're better. It's just different. I went through this thing, so I'm different, so I can help you. It shouldn't be you, okay, oh, Alan 3.6, so I'm not going to listen to what he has to say. I'm too good for that. That's bullshit. My mindset should be, look, I'm not happy with the results that I have in my life. This person obviously is. Let's work together so I can get to that level. That should be the mindset.
So this is the metaphor, and I really appreciate this conversation. If I take this has a great camera on it that has cinema view.
Yeah,
If I take a video on cinema view and you have, let's say, an old flip phone that I used to use when I was a kid,
yeah,
and I take a video with cinema view and I make a movie and you make a movie with the little flip phone camera, my movie's going to be far better than yours, and I'm going to be able to sell it for a lot more.
right.
What if my iPhone 14 Allen 3.5
Hmm.
is that much more capable than you? Your results are a byproduct of your own capabilities.
Yeah.
And for the most part, obviously there's status and perception and social and blah blah blah. But ultimately, how do you upgrade your iPhone so that you can achieve your goals and dreams? One of the reasons we aren't achieving our goals and dreams is because, and I know you got to jump soon, is because we aren't capable enough yet.
Hmm.
And so you asked me who to spend time with.
Hmm.
You have to steer clear of people who don't have what I call inward humility.
Oof. Powerful.
Most people are outwardly humble.
Hmm.
They act humble, but they're not reading books. They're not taking courses. They're not journaling. They don't have therapists and coaches. I have a therapist. I have a therapist. That's inward humility. I
Hmm.
appear arrogant.
Hmm.
Why would someone arrogant get a therapist?
Hmm.
Why would someone work on something they don't admit is a problem? I said I'm an alcoholic. I said I have an issue. I said I need help. That's humility in action.
Yeah.
The people you need to avoid, I have a filter on my whiteboard. It's called unmedzai.
Hmm.
Unstable, naive, manipulative, entitled, delusional, significance driven, arrogant, and immature. If you are any of those 8 things at level 10, you have a higher unmedzai score. I created this personally to protect myself from people who I'm bad for.
Oh my
But
gosh.
ultimately, what it comes down to is if you have low humility and you can never be a student and your deepest fear is being seen as less than, I
Mhm.
pretty much can't work with you because you are unwilling to be a student and you would rather look good than actually get better.
Yes, man, you could tell you that you have the analytical background for sure because it's almost as I'm talking to you, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, but my favorite book of all time is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and he takes
Nice.
success and he turns it into a math problem. And as I'm listening to you and your background in the analytics world, it's almost like everything you have measurables for all the fulfillment, and that's something that again, as I promise you guys every single time I hit the record button on this podcast is there's going to be something here that's going to take you or help you get through whatever moments or whatever obstacles that you may have. And understand people have a filtering system that's built into their subconscious. If you're a bullshit person and you don't want to really work, that thing kicks in within a few seconds. It's like, I'm not working with that person. I'm going to go move on and spend my time on people that's going to fulfill me. And then we're going to start working together. So like you said, we could probably talk for hours, but I do want to be very respectful of your time. Can you just tell people a little bit about how they can get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out if they want to hear more? You could put all that stuff out there.
So, no matter where you find yourself right now, I think that if you take personal responsibility for where you've ended up, you have a bigger, better, brighter future, at least the opportunity for one. And if you want help building that, I'm your guy. So, we have podcasts, we do a monthly meetup, we have a book club, we got all kinds of free things. We also have paid stuff, but
Mhm.
you can go to nextleveluniverse.com. And the metaphor is next level you, pun intended. Just like the iPhone 14 is better than the iPhone
I just
13.
actually that just hit me. Next level. You,
Nice.
yeah, I
Next
just
level you,
all
the best
right.
version of you, the
I
next
got
level
it.
version of yourself, right? No matter how hard your past has been, you have a spotless future just like me, and we can build it. We can build ourselves and we can build our future. So we have Next Level University podcast, spelled
Uh,
just like it sounds. And then the website is not to be confused because it's nextleveluniverse.com. com. The podcast is Next Level University. The name of the business is Next Level University. And all of our links and everything will be in the show notes. You also can Google my name as well. I'll probably come up as well.
Yep. Hey, public figures, man. They're get to the point now. Just Google me. We're Googleable folks here. All right. So the final thing I do, Alan, to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are the 26th version of yourself. Let's say it's the week before the accident. Pretend that version of Alan, he's got all these friends, he's got a fat check, he's drinking, he's partying, he's having his fun. Pretend that version of Alan has come into the Zoom room. Just talk to him a little bit, give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Alan, you are surrounded by people who you want to see as better than they really are. You have a lot of self-belief, so everyone around you is mirroring that when in reality they're actually full of it. You might be one of the only people who actually does have goals and dreams, even though everyone acts like they do. And you won't find out until later that most people are actually pretending to have goals and dreams and don't intend on doing a whole lot of anything. You are an esoteric weirdo, and you need to own it, and you need to leave. And most people in your life are holding you back energetically because they know that you're wanting more and you have a high standard. So you most likely get bullied and treated poorly because of that high standard. And you are a wonderful person and you're afraid of facing the past traumas of your life. You lost your dad when you were 2. You lost your stepdad when you were 14. You kind of lost 3 full families by the time you were 14. And you have to go back and face all of that. And for the hell, go get a goddamn therapist. Because honestly, you have dozens of mentors and coaches, but the last thing you need is mentoring and coaching. What you need is therapy. Because I think the people who want a therapist need a coach. And I think the people who want a coach probably need a therapist. So go do the inner work, and that's going to unlock you so tremendously. And the number one most important thing for you, Alan, of 26 years old, is social courage. You are a social coward. You are so good at applying to the job and doing the resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. You're professionally developed. You're so good at taking action and achievement, but you are a social coward. You never tell people what you really believe because you're so afraid of the lash out. When in reality, you have to be courageous enough to say, listen, you are kind of sucking. And listen, you do drink too much and too often. And listen, it's not okay that you treat people like that. And it's not okay that you treat me like that. And listen, can't we set a higher standard? The people I grew up with, the standards were so low and it bothers me so much. And you have to have the courage to rise above and transform through all of that. And yeah, that's what I would say to me.
Listen, I'm moved as normally on the show, but again, I appreciate from one podcast to the next, one public figure to the next. I'm truly appreciative of your work. Keep doing it because it's guys like you who make it possible for folks like me to keep going, even though, the majority of people that you are around don't have that standard. It's always great connecting with folks that are able to open doors for multiple people. So, all that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.